All right, let's get right into this. So yesterday, I just did a very short video. It's kind of a review of some things. Now, last night, not that I was planning on, but I followed a couple of videos and I posted them on. They were from my trip in Dubai, which was about some years back. Some years back that I did that trip. Now, I thought I'd talk about that, but from quite an interesting perspective and idea. So. What I'm going to start talking about is, first of all, I'm going to tell you that when I grew up, the ideals that I grew up on, I grew up in a very strange environment, you know, um, and I'll be honest, I mean, for whatever reason, and it didn't have to do with anyone around me. It had to do with myself. It's not just the way that I grew up, the person that I was when I was a child. I had a different mentality. I've talked about that. But the truth is that, money wasn't that big to me. And I think everybody knew that money wasn't my thing. And I had a different idea. I would say that I really had more of a socialist idea going on in my head, and that I favorited that, and that I was really on that side of socialism. And I give you another example. So, like I said in my big, that long financial, personal economics video that I did, I talked about how I went to Cuba, so Che Guevara was supposed to be Marxist, socialist, communist, and he was going country to country practicing guerrilla warfare in order to spread that idea. So spreading that idea through military means, trying to do a coup everywhere in Latin America. He was actually thinking that after he did that in all of Latin America, after all of Latin America had become socialist, that he would go to the Orient and he would start with countries like Vietnam and stuff, and he would turn all the Oriental countries socialist as well. As you know, China is the largest country population-wise and landscape-wise in the Orient, and I believe China is communist if I'm not incorrect. So, I wanted to talk about that. So, again, that was the perspective that I was coming from. Che and Fidel, they didn't like the upper class. They didn't like capitalism. They didn't like people who wanted to just make as much money as they could and live a very lavish life. They wanted people to lower the amount of money they had, to all share, be one nation, and make be educated. So put education over wealth. So no, status is about education, not about your wealth. Today people say stuff like that. Yeah, I don't have I don't have a degree. I never went to university, or I barely went to university, but I have a business and an empire that I earn about $500 million every 5 years. You know what I mean? That's how big I am, right? And they were against that. No, be proud of the education that you have. Che was a doctor, by the way, and Fidel was a lawyer. They were very educated, and they kind of had resentment towards those who lived a better life, who were capitalistic and whatnot. Now, I'm telling you, that was the side that I was on. And it doesn't take one to really look far. I mean, Iran is another example. Iran pretty much became a socialist place. So they became a quote unquote Islamic republic, or an Islamic regime. And I think it was in the 70s, but I don't really remember. It could have been the 50s or 60s. They had a monarchy as well that was capitalist or pro-capitalist, and they ousted it and got this new Islamic movement. All the women in Iran had to wear headscarves. Okay. You know what's funny about Cuba, which is another socialist place? I think it was the late 90s. They actually made a law that tourists or foreigners that were vacationing in Cuba, there is a government law saying that you cannot have sex with Cuban women unless you marry them. So if you're not married to a Cuban woman, you can't just come to Cuba to date girls or meet girls or pick up girls and have sex with them. Literally, there's a government law saying you cannot have sex with Cuban women in Cuba if you're a foreigner. Literally, it's crazy. And they practice it. If you talk to a girl and you pick her up and you want her to hang out with you, she's not going to do it. That's very dangerous. She could be killed for that. Especially if you start trying to picking her up at a bar or on the street where there's people around. Okay, that's real. I'm not joking about that. So, and I'll be very honest with you, I embraced those ideals. As a child, I thought that was the way the world should work, that's the way that we should live. And I've talked about how pretty much I was on the losing team as a child, and literally hitting 18 years old, I took a different curve. Well, I would say as I was hitting 18 years old, as I was moving towards that age, I started taking a different curve. And at 18, I kind of moved to the winning side. But the truth was that regardless of being on the winning or losing side, I wasn't on the pro-capitalist side. I was on the socialist side. I always believed